Well, good. Well, let's go ahead and get started. So there was another session right before this at 12. So kind of back to back. So we have some people jumping in late. Another point of interest about this is it is being recorded, but only for internal use, so that finalists, if they're not able to make this particular call, they can go back and view it. So I anticipate there'll be a lot of interest around this. So even if we don't have 100% capacity in this room, most people I think will watch it. So let's just take a moment. We've all had, most of us are, except for Kendra and maybe a couple others, are kind of long into our day. So just take a moment of silence and prayer and recollection as we start this session. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, we invite you, your presence, into this space, this virtual space, that it may be one of community, communication, and learning for the upbuilding of your kingdom, and that we may do all things in your name. Amen. In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Great. So welcome, everyone. So this session is going to be on digital marketing in the church. We're really blessed to have Kendra Tierney from Catholic All Year here, as well as Luke from Catching Foxes. I'll offer a brief introduction to them, but then give them the floor for a little bit to just share some of their journey and some of the work that they're doing and what they found to be, some of the lessons learned maybe in that, maybe 5-10 minutes for each one. And then we can open it up for Q&A, which I think will be the most kind of compelling part of this. So Kendra, I actually met her and her family out in LA at St. Therese Parish, where I was for a little while. So it's great to see her in a different context. Beautiful family, and they just do wonderful work in the church, Catholic All Year, and a lot of her other just communication about the church. And I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the work that she's done and the witness that her family's had for the church, which is a great grace. Luke Carey is major gifts officer at Glenmary Home Missioners, but most people know him through podcast and their work with Catching Foxes, which is just a lot of fun to listen to, and integrates the authentic faith into it in a way that I think makes it relevant and fun too. So they can share some of their journey. Kendra, do you mind kicking us off?
No. All right. So in 2013, I decided that there needed to be a Catholic mom blog, and of course many of those already existed. I just wasn't aware of it, and so it's good that I wasn't aware of it, because I think I wouldn't have started one. But yeah, so I started my blog Catholic All Year back in 2013, right about when everybody was saying that blogs were dead and you should abandon them. So I started one. And the focus of it is on liturgical living in the home, to teaching about the old traditions of the church, and as an important corollary to that, to be able to show people this countercultural life of a large family, following the teachings of the Catholic Church and trying to live a Catholic life and grow in personal holiness. So at the same time that I started my blog, I got onto social media for the first time as a late adopter of all of it. But it has worked out really well, and I have about 30,000 followers on Facebook, about the same between my blog account and my personal account on Instagram. I have started doing YouTube videos as well. I just started Patreon, so I feel like I have experience with a lot of different social media. I am on Twitter and don't understand it at all. until just a couple of months ago, I was a big apologist for social media apostolate. It has been a really great way to create community and reach out to people. It has been super nuts the last couple of months, and I'm hoping that that some of the divisiveness will calm down with time, and it will again be a place that I enjoy being. But really, I also have books and so social media is still a really good way to get in touch with people that I want to share my message with. So yeah, that's I've got 10 kids. My oldest turns 18 today, and my youngest is 10 months. And like John said, we live in Los Angeles area, and this is my attic chapel that I'm sitting in case you're wondering.
Awesome, beautiful. Thank you, Kendra, for the update and sharing a little about your journey. Luke, tell us about you and what you've been up to.
Sure. So I'm Luke. Hi. I'll give you guys the overall honest story of how Catching Foxes started. Not that we lie, but this is like the real kind of, it's just the more like sad version of like how it started, I guess. So in the around late fall of 2014, I was in just a really weird spot. I had made a career, I had turned down a job and made a career move because I just wanted to go be in Denver, and it didn't really work out for a whole bunch of reasons. And I was kind of in this little bit of a desperate spot of like, holy crap, I just killed my career because I wanted to drink craft beer. And it was a really just, yeah. And so I kind of hit a point where I was like, God, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what you want me to do. And the Lord had put on my heart to go into ministry. And I was like, what the heck are you talking about? Like, I cannot afford to do that. I was like 31 at the time, and just, it was a confusing time. And I bring that up because in a weird way, Catching Foxes was started out of desperation, not out of desperation in the sense of like, I need to do a thing that works, but out of, I need to hear I was in a really rough place. And what was the most difficult part of that was the stuff that was giving me the most comfort. I wouldn't say that it was, not that it was like a disappointing thing, but I was going towards podcasts like the WTF podcast with Mark Maron, the Nerdist podcast, other things that were just honestly way more of like, here's a real human story of real things, of like, people trying to do hard stuff, and it's going well, it's going bad. It was just so inspiring. And it just bothered me that every Catholic piece of media that at least I saw was this really clean cut, here's why like life is great if you just do X, Y, Z. And I was just kind of like, screw that. And so I got the idea to do, I wanted to do a podcast that was in the style of these other things that I liked, and we could have like a Catholic voice to it, but I wanted it to be not Catholic. This is going to sound very odd. I'm like really wanted to be a good podcast that had a Catholic voice, if that makes sense. And so I talked with my buddy, Michael Gorm. His name is Michael Gormley. He goes to Gomer. We're both huge fans of podcasts. He's the guy that really got me into them back in 2009. And I was like, I have an idea to do a podcast. And we talked it out, and we're like, hey, we think we can actually do this. And then we started, and we did about 5 episodes or so, and it was terrible. And I think we may have released one. I really don't remember. I had a bunch of huge life transitions happen. I got engaged. I finally gave in to the Lord's push to go into ministry, and the day after that, I got a job offer to go and work with the Archdiocese of Cincinnati. Well, not a job offer, but like hey, we want you to like interview. Wink, wink, for this job here. And I was like, okay. And then, so we kind of had like a little bit of like a stop and start thing. And around May of 2015, we actually started the podcast in earnest. And from that point, really haven't stopped. And it just exploded. I mean, just in a way that I thought we were going to, you know, gain like listenership, but I never thought it was going to become what it is right now. We're almost at 7 million total downloads. We average about 10 to 25,000 downloads within about a week or so, and probably a little bit higher than that over like 90-day period. We have a current Patreon page where you know, we have about 300 plus members on there. We do a couple of live shows every year. That has stopped, and obviously, but it just kind of like all of a sudden we just became a part of this kind of thing that I never thought it was going to be. So that's our story, and it's working out somehow, and I don't really know why still.
Great. Well, thanks for those intros, succinct, on the point, but also pretty comprehensive. So that's great. So question. Yeah. So if you have questions, put them in the chat. We'll pull from here. Initial question from Karina at My Prayer Corner. She's developing prayer kits for the home and help families pray together, like with a kit. And so her question is, you know, building a Catholic brand in ministry on social media. Are there tips for growing, and things that you'd recommend not doing or staying away from, or lessons learned in that process?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. You go ahead.
Yeah. So I would say that that I think that social media would be a really good way to market that sort of thing. That there are, you know, that there's a whole community of Catholic moms who would be interested in that sort of thing. And so I would recommend that you know, if you don't already have a social media presence, to start one. Facebook and Instagram are good for, you know, for different reasons. Facebook is good because you can have links with it right off the go. For Instagram, I think you still have to have 10,000 followers to be able to include links in your stories, which is a little bit of a handicap for smaller pages, because people have to, you know, then go and search for you. But one way around that is to sort of is to share through bigger pages, and that's something that I definitely wanted to talk about, was you know, partnering with bloggers and you know, social media influencers. It's a terrible term that has all sorts of baggage, but it's the truth that people who have a platform that reaches the people that you want to reach, it can be a really good, you know, sort of symbiotic relationship, because, you know, the Catholic families who follow me definitely want resources for, you know, for their family's faith life, and you want to provide those resources to them. It can be difficult to find the right balance, though. I know that I was really open to it and excited about it when I had fewer followers and fewer opportunities. And I think back now to the people who reached out to me, you know, when I had 500 followers and 800 followers, and Nancy Banducci's on this call was, you know, I've had a sharing relationship with her and her products since, I mean, for many years. And so I feel great loyalty towards her, you know, and her brand, because we've been working together for so long, and she was somebody who, believed in me before, I think before I had books or anything, and wanted to share what she was doing with me. So it's tempting to just only reach out to the biggest platforms, but those people get so many, opportunities, and you can feel really bogged down. Like right now, I'm not in my office, but I wish I could show you the stack of beautifully, like lovingly packaged things that have come to me in the mail that I know, people's small business hopes and dreams are wrapped up in that package, and I can't even get to opening them all because I have book deadlines and birthday parties, and I had a huge stack of stuff that I want to get to and share, but I just might never get to it. So one way around that is to reach out to people with a smaller platform, and another way is to actually offer to partner in a more professional sort of way, where you have some sort of affiliate program with a particular blogger, or you partner with another artist who might design things for and that way it's a collaborative effort and you're both sharing, or you offer to compensate the blogger for their time, or because I think that makers don't realize the amount of time it takes to stage photos. And again, when I was smaller, I could just take a selfie with the thing, but now I feel like there's an expectation that I'm going to have good photographs, that I'm going to have something important to say about it, and so there's a lot more involved. And so it does take hours of my time to share, and that's even just for one social media post, let alone a blog post. So if you think about, what are you willing to compensate for the time that it's going to take somebody to share about your product? I don't know, there's so many other avenues in it, but maybe I'll let Luke speak to it.
No, that was awesome. I would just add that for us, we really in the beginning, especially as it relates to our brand, we gave ourselves the permission to take time. Like we knew it would probably going to take about 100 episodes till we found our voice. And I'm really glad that we did that. I'm really glad that from the start, we didn't try to be this like edgy, weird thing, because I think we would have gone way too hard, and it really wouldn't have worked. And we just gave it took so we had the first couple of episodes that no one heard. And then we really didn't do an episode that I was like, oh my gosh, I am proud of this, until around episode 8, when we had an episode on pornography that was unlike any Catholic conversation I had heard before. And I can remember I was at this like work conference when I was this is back when I worked over at the Archdiocese, and the guy that I do the podcast with, his name is Gomer. He really he edited the podcast at 12 o'clock at night. He sent it over to me, and I was.
Can you guys hear me? Sorry, my headphones just died. So you guys hear me? Okay, good. So I remember being in the parking lot of this grocery store, smoking a pack of cigarettes, because I don't smoke, but I needed to stay awake to listen to this podcast that we had done. That I was we did it. Now we're really starting. We finally took some time to crack this code. And since then, I think we've really again. I think that that 100 episode rule for us was so true, because there was this constant going back to what we were doing and trying to find is this who we are and what we want to be, and we really haven't ever stopped that conversation. And so I think it's really important, as it relates to your brand, that one, you give yourself time, and then don't ever stop having the conversation of is this who you are and what you want and what you want to be. And we have We're at the point now where we tend to view the podcast like albums, and we do them in stacks of around 100 episodes. So we're kind of on the third album right now, where we're trying to take the standpoint of how do you be Catholic in a post-Christian world, and that, and like that is the lens that we tend to talk about stuff through. And in the past, it was more of a ministry thing. How do we engage what's going on from the standpoint of ministry? Before that, it was more, I'm so upset with God. How do I figure out all of this stuff? And continuing to have a conversation, and then that impacts all of our social media, everything that we do, because it's coming from a specific lens. So yeah.
Great, very thoughtful response. Go ahead, Kendra.
I love that. I think that's such an important point that especially if you've already been in sort of the circle as a participant, and now you want to be in the circle as a creator, there's this pressure that you put on yourself to immediately catch up to people who've been there before. But yeah, it really is ideal to take that time when you have a smaller following to make those mistakes and figure out who you want to be and what your message is, and how, because some people want to have a really broad platform and talk about everything, and some people you're going to really want to focus. And I know for me, I started off really, really broad, and I still kind of wish I could be, but I feel like I've had to focus my message more because especially in a climate on social media that's so divisive, where I want my specific message of liturgical living in the home to be able to reach a lot of people. And so that means I can't, even though of course I have opinions on other issues that are important in the Catholic Church, those are issues upon which good Catholics are allowed to disagree. Some of them are, and so if I take a hard stand on one side or the other, then it can feel alienating, and it can feel like people don't have permission to just be a part of my community for family stuff and for learning about saints' lives, because I'm pushing other agendas too, even though I also feel strongly about those things. But yeah, at the beginning, to just work on creating what your brand is and what is the face that you want to put on it, and during your research and seeing which pages do you like and which what resonates with you and what doesn't, what makes you want to not follow somebody, and just sort of be mindful about how you're putting it together. But you have to take time and allow yourself to grow slowly, which I'm sure would be easier if you win a contest that gives you some capital.
Yeah, thanks for those honest answers. So there's a question from JM Boyd at Glass Canvas. You alluded to this earlier, Kendra, when you said you got all these boxes and packages of people's hopes and dreams waiting in your house. But reflecting on people that have reached out to you, for various reasons, with various motives, etc. What have you, the way he phrased it is, what do you hate about people who want to engage you with access to your audience, versus, what makes you want to promote someone's product or idea?
Yeah. And I mean, I get so many emails that don't say my name, that, are just mass sent out to a lot of people. Or, my favorite is I love your insert random post here that has nothing to do with the product, I love your post on whatever, and I'm sure that you would love to promote this product that has nothing to do with my audience. And, those I just delete. But where it gets tougher is that I think that people with a platform and people with a product see the same thing from such different angles. And most of the time, people who are approaching me with their small business product, think that they are doing me a favor by giving me their product, which is, is created with love by them, but I don't really like stuff to begin with. Even great Catholic stuff, I'm just sort of a stuff minimalist. So it's not stuff that I would be buying anyway. So, to me, it's just a favor to the creator and a favor to my audience. So, I want to do those favors as much as I can, but it's mainly a burden for me. And so I don't necessarily want compensation. A lot of bigger platforms do, and they have a whole, they've got a scale of what they want to be, what they want to be paid for promoting things. To me, that puts more pressure on me to make it happen. And so what I prefer is that somebody would contact me and say that they like my ministry, they have this product, they would love to send it to me and see if I and my family like it. And if I felt like sharing it, that would be great. And so that's my preference. Now, I know a lot of other people are going to say, like, here is what it costs for me to share your product. And then they feel, that their time is being valued and their platform that they worked to build is being valued in that way. So, I think that unfortunately there's no one answer, but I know that's what I like is a no strings attached. And I do feel, I genuinely feel badly. I think back and remember, like, oh, here's that beautiful package that somebody sent me, and my kid was in the hospital and I never shared about it. And now it's like 8 months later. But my hope is that they did set their expectation that here is a chance I'm taking on sending this to somebody who might appreciate it and might share it. But other ways to make sure that it gets shared is, like I was mentioning before, a more collaborative effort. Like, if it obviously it depends on what your product or ministry is, but if you're trying to promote your ministry, you could reach out to an artist account who designs t-shirts, and you guys could design a t-shirt together, and then he's going to promote that and therefore your ministry, and you're gonna, so it's like, if you can create something that's beneficial for both sides, or actually sort of hire the person as a consultant, you can create an affiliate program. I know smaller bloggers really like that, because even though it's just like, a few dollars at a time, at least it feels for them, and I remember feeling this when I was a smaller blogger, it feels like that effort that you're putting into it, at least is showing some small monetary result.
Yeah, that's awesome. I would just add to that with us. So typically every other podcast we do is an interview. That hasn't been the case with COVID, just because we've been doing a live podcast, and so we can only do that with 2 people. It's just kind of more a logistical thing. But we tend to get a lot of interview. Like, I think the last interview of requests that we booked was about 2 years ago, because we kept getting ones that just, you don't listen, like, you have no, like, we're not the kind of podcast that you say, we want to come and talk about prayer. I'm like, who gives it? Like, I don't care what you have to say about prayer. Like, that's what Father Mike Schmitz is for, and he's way better looking. So, like, why am I bringing you in? Like, it's just, we typically only really, like, we tend to ask people to come on our show when we have an interesting thing that we want to hear from them, and to be honest, most like popular podcast have been ones where it's, we've just had my sister on, or we've like had a friend on who does work with people who have autism, and we, like, all these really, we don't get a huge bump when we have like Matt Fradd on. It's fun because he's our friend, but we don't get this, like, and it's and so for us, like, we really had to learn how to, like, really how to say no, because we knew it wasn't, like, we were going to sacrifice our brand to be able to connect with this thing, even though it's really cool. Like, And I'm at a point right now where I really tell people, like, I think what you want to do is actually buy an ad on our show. And that's actually a really good idea. We've had some people who have had like huge success with that. And we currently charge about $1,200 for a 4-campaign ad. And we also partner with a group called PAR, who does like outside stuff. So we do ads like Better Health, Policy Genius, all your typical podcast stuff. But like one thing that I've had like not like issues with, but it's been tough with quote unquote Catholic brands is this like, oh, they think because like I have like a good product, can I just do this for free, or can I just have like a little bit of a discount? And it's like, well, I mean, if we really like you, we will. Like we've had different ministries that like we just do an ad for because we love their ministry, and like this is our like way to tithe. But I think like really, I would just really encourage, if you have a really good product, be willing to like spend money to market that on the right things in the right ways. Like if you want to have a young adult audience who really cares about stuff, who's kind of like hip with the times, our show's perfect for that, because that's where our audience is. That's probably going to change in about like 10 years when it'll be more like, you know, like some people who have kids who are like 10 and up, you know. And I just think that if we can just be more willing to really use our money and our time well, and try and not take advantage over things, and understand the real cost, that if you want to do an ad, you need a campaign in order to really make that, you know, that takes like a long-term investment, but it is paid off for the people who have done it. So really understand, like, try to find the right people to the right people who you know has the right audience, and then try to connect with them and their audience in the right way, which for us is ads. And I've just seen a lot of Catholic brands aren't willing to take that risk, and so I really encourage you guys to like use your money well, and don't be afraid to spend money either. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but there you go.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, Kendra, do you have something?
Well, and I would just say that as far as ads, I think that for a long time there's sort of a negative, I don't know, that people maybe thought that ads are somehow like disingenuous or not a real, if you're getting paid for it, it means that you don't really believe in it. But I mean, I would never promote something that I don't actually use, no matter how much money somebody offered me. And I think that that's the perception that people have now. I think especially, maybe not so much on Instagram, but definitely on YouTube, and I think on podcasts too, that the YouTubers that I watch regularly, I don't skip through their ads because I want to know what they think about this product, because I trust their judgment. And so I think that that's a really good way to reach people. It feels like we've gone all the way back in time to where TV shows were live and the like Dancing Cigarette Girls would come out, and that the ad is part of the show that you mean to watch. And I feel like especially on YouTube that's really the case. And so if you can partner with somebody and who is making content, and those people are going to have expenses that you can help defray, and you can get your message out, and people, I think, will connect with it.
Yeah, I would just add, like, there's this one question in the chat that was really good, that had asked about, like, if I have a product, should I like have a blog or something to really help market that? And I would say probably not. Like really spend time trying to find, again, those really, like, find the brand, like what brands do you like, and like, why do you like them? And do you think is there really a good fit there? So, and especially, like, that is totally true, Kendra, about how, like, people actually now like ads on podcast, because so like I did an 8-minute ad for BetterHelp that we had to cut down to 2 minutes, that was only supposed to be 1 minute. And we actually put it on our Patreon page because even though they get like an ad-free version of the show, they love to hear those like longer editions of the ad. Our ads are, no, this is just us because we're stupid. Our ads are kind of funny and, you know, they're fun. And like, we just go all out, and then I just trust Gomer to really like edit them well. And it's been really cool to see that. So, like ads are so, I would take an ad over podcast interview any day, because I think that if a real ad campaign is done well, you'll have a much better return.
Great, good color commentary on this question. So another question in here from Nancy. You ever struggled with insecurity about speaking on the faith or teaching about the faith? You know, like, okay, who am I to start talking about these things? And how have you, dealt with that, either, psychologically or in other ways?
Can I take this one first? So I kind of got thrown into this whole Catholic speaker world thing that I just detest. And I remember the first time we interviewed Father Mike Schmitz on the show, I was like, someone here does not belong, and it is me. And the amount of times I've heard people say they started to listen to our podcast, and at first they liked Gomer, but then I became their favorite. Like, I could buy like a $20, like something cool with that, because I think like one reason why it has gone well for like both of us is I didn't want to go into that world at all. I wanted nothing to do with it. I was like kind of, especially like the early episodes, you can hear me being like anti that stuff. And I had, because and part of it came from, and then as the podcast started like to grow and stuff, I was like, I don't know how do I be this? And I realized that like you can't. And I think why most people connect with our podcast is because we kind of say like, screw you to the whole like Catholic image thing. Like, we're not going to do that, and we're going to like be as broken as we can. Now, I think we have a good show, so there's that, like that part helps. And I don't think we put our pain on display for everyone to see, but I think we do present it in the right way that have allowed people to connect with us. And I really had to let go of that fear of like, how am I going to be perceived? This is awkward. And it's been really good. It's been good, but you have to be careful that you're still like doing what you do well. So it's just kind of like this weird balance of, yes, on our show, I'm going to be incredibly vulnerable, but I'm going to, trust Gomer to really edit it well and so it's packaged well, so it doesn't look sad. Like, have you guys ever like been to like a, comedy show or like a concert where like the artist is like kind of like too real and you're like, oh, this is just like awkward now, so there kind of is that other way. You can't absolutely go too far, and I think you have to be aware of that as well. So there is like a little bit of a balance there.
Yeah, I would say that the imposter syndrome feeling is real, and I think that it's important for us as Catholics to have, because there's a reason that the Catholic Church waits 50 years normally to proclaim somebody a saint, because the jury's still out on all of us. So I try to present myself, and I hope that I'm successful as a subject expert, and not as some sort of model of faith. I am not that, and I hope that I'm not presenting myself as that. What I hope to present myself as is an actual person, struggling to raise a family in the faith, struggling to grow in personal holiness myself. And so trying to be honest about that, and to not, and I know, I have to make sure that I'm not presenting myself as somebody who knows it all, because I definitely don't. But this idea of that, you know, proclaiming oneself to be a Catholic in the public eye is a really scary and dangerous thing. Like, I mean, if you guys aren't all praying for Bishop Barron every day, you should start, you know, and all of these Catholics that are in the public eye, because it is, you know, there was just 2 weeks ago a big Catholic mom blogger apostatized publicly on Facebook, and it was very sad. But you know, it's important to remember that one person isn't the Catholic faith. And so I think that if we present ourselves as somebody who's passionate about a particular aspect of our faith, who's passionate about sharing that with other people, because we can be, you know, we can be evangelists, but without being saints, and to be real. I guess what I was trying to say before is that, you know, I've been so fortunate to know in real life good Catholic families, and I mean, John knows what an amazing parish I am a part of. It's just extraordinary, and it's full of big families who are really enthusiastic and trying to practice their faith, and the pastor is just unbelievably great. And not everyone has that. And so those of us who are willing to be Catholic on social media, online, you know, in podcasts, on YouTube, it at least gives people that the understanding that despite what the culture is telling you, it is possible to try to live like this. That, you know, a lot of people just dismiss it, like, oh, nobody actually does that, right? Like, sure, these are all the rules, but nobody's actually doing that. But, you know, I am, and that's why, like, that's why I have been willing to be open with my family, to, you know, to show my kids and, you know, my older kids with their permission, and to try to show just one example of one Catholic family. And I am an expert on my family, and I am an expert on, you know, what we're trying to do to grow in faith. And yeah, I mean, we all have to be careful to not present ourselves as, you know, having this all sewn up. You know, none of us do. And so, you know, we're all, we are in a precarious position where falling would be, you know, scandalous for a lot of people. So, you know, an awareness of that and some humility, I think, goes a long way. But if God has put something to share on your heart, it's for a reason. And he didn't put that on your heart for you to hide it under a bushel basket. Like, he wants you to share it, but, you know, but with humility and care.
That's a really good point about the idea of, like, I'm constantly terrified of scandal. And I think it's now, I don't think that doesn't mean that, like, I should stop, but I think it's something that should always be on your mind. There's a really great article called The Hazard of Online Faith Writing by, her name is Amy Wellborn. And she talks about a book called The Hack. And the idea of it is that it's this guy who's like, he writes these fun little Reader's like Digest-esque stuff to, like, you know, the masses. I think this was written in the early 1960s. And this guy's, like, this whole, like, issue in The Hack is that this guy, his faith becomes that. It becomes this easy, this like easy to read, easy, like, his faith doesn't challenge him anymore. And it's really important that, like, because you're going to screw up your faith, and even if it's a product that, you know, has like a faith thing, if it's a podcast, if it's like a YouTube thing, whatever, they're going to start to overlap and become the same thing at some point in time, and that's dangerous. But it's going to happen. I promise you. Where, like, your faith will be about, like, what you're doing, because it's just, you're, you know, like a human being. I've seen it happen to pretty much everyone. And it's really important, just like you said, to have a really good parish, have your only prayer life, have people praying for you. Don't ever put your vocation behind whatever it is that you're doing for the church, whether that be like a product or like a show or anything, because your vocation is your highway to holiness. And when that starts to come when that is the expense of comes at the expense of this the stuff that you're doing, that makes it really hard to be. It just is a downward spiral to awfulness. And it happens. It really happens. I mean, you're going to screw that up. Accept that fact, and then try to have and really have people in your life who can help you work through it when it does happen. And that'll help you be your authentic self, as opposed to this fake thing. That does happen. I mean, it does happen to everyone where you feel like a fraud, and that's okay. Just try to work through it.
Well, and then another thing that I would add is, that we have the examples of the saints for people, unlikely people who are fulfilling the mission that God gave to them. And she's not Catholic, but I love the example of Corrie ten Boom in The Hiding Place. If you've read that she's this middle-aged clockmaker who, a middle-aged single clockmaker who ends up, hiding Jews and running this whole underground operation in World War II. And she basically has superpowers, and she's able to navigate these systems, and I mean, just things that she would never have been able to do. And then at some point, it just kind of goes away. There's a long story and a lot involved, but that part of her life goes away, and she just sort of goes back to her regular life. And what I'm doing is in no way like what Corrie ten Boom was doing, but I always think about her as that God is giving me the tools that I need to accomplish the job that he's given me right now, and that it might all go away at any moment, and I have to be okay with that. And I really try to hit post on everything I share, thinking, well, maybe nobody's going to read this one. Maybe this is the end of it all, and that will be okay. Because I have a lot of, I can turn away from my screen and go back to my family at any moment and be 100% okay with that. At least I tell myself that. and that I think that that's the way that has been healthy for me to approach it, that our value doesn't come from how many people our ministry reaches, and our value doesn't come from how many products we sell, even though they're good products. It comes, our value, the value in it comes from doing what God asks of us to the best of our ability. And so, that it could go away, and that'll be okay, because we still tried, and that's what God asked us.
Beautiful, great reflections here. And this is a good segue to another question from Michael O'Rourke at Strong Catholic Dad. So they develop, identify cool videos on YouTube and use that as a forum for building, stronger dad children relationships in the home. And so he brings up this tension I'm sure you have experienced of, okay, you're running this ministry, the funds, may or may not be there, and you're trying to build it, but your primary vocation is in the family. And both of you generate a tremendous amount of content. I mean, that's a lot of work. So how do you, guide, thoughts, experience on how to integrate those things in a healthy way, draw boundaries?
Sure. I would say one is communicate with your spouse and with the people you're doing the work with as well. So, and also, communication, have a routine. We record on Monday nights, 10 p.m. always, with a little bit of flexibility. Now, we don't follow that off of a cliff, but and so in case there is a family issue, that always comes first, and we will do our best to try to find a different time to record our podcast, and then I'm always talking with my wife about stuff that we have coming up, asking her if it's is this too much. So for us, when we were doing the live shows once a month, that's all that we could really commit to without having to sacrifice our families. And so having, like a routine that works for you and your family of like, this is when I do my stuff is really important, and constantly communicating with your spouse, your family, and any of your, any of your own partners with in your ministry or your work is this working? I think are really good things to do.
Yeah. So this is always it's such a difficult balance to reach. I would say that we need to understand, and our family needs to understand, that they are our primary vocation. But that doesn't mean that you don't do stuff. And as much as I spend a lot of time on on my computer, I had a book deadline on June 1st that I did not hit because USCCB doesn't respond to emails in a timely manner. And then I had another one a month later, and now I got to go back and fix all that stuff for the other book. And it was just terrible. Like, I should not have agreed to, I should not have set myself up for all of these crazy deadlines, one right after the other. So what I was going to say is, normally this thing where we're sort of in charge of ourselves, it's that we can kind of set our schedules, and that our audience is largely really understanding on how much content we are able to create, because they know that we have lives outside of what we're doing. And so as much as we put pressure on ourselves to create content and hit our deadlines, our audience is more forgiving than we are on ourselves a lot of times. But as far as spending time on it at all, and I'm going to guess that this is more of a burden on moms than it would be on dads, is that we have there's sort of this expectation that a stay-at-home mom is going to be sitting on the floor playing trains with you, and that I was just never going to do that. Like, before I was writing books and creating YouTube videos, I was sewing very complicated quilts and chasing my kids out of the kitchen so that I could try new recipes. And so a lot of this involves my family, and I always, they're in my videos with me, and I'm trying out things with them. So they know that they're sort of a part of it, but I was always going to need to create things. So I was always going to spend time doing that. And so now, I think that they can understand that what I want to spend time on creating is helpful to people who don't have the same resources that we do, who don't have the same amazing community that we do. And so just being open with them, and like Luke said, setting the expectations and stepping away. And I think that that's something that I have had to learn the hard way, is that, that meme about like someone's wrong on the internet. Like, it's so tempting to, to get too attached to that, or worried that you're not as accessible to your audience as some people are. But again, it's okay if comments and questions get left unanswered. It's okay if you miss an episode. I stepped away from my YouTube videos entirely for a little while, and that's been great. And I don't like to make big announcements about what I'm doing and what I'm not doing, because it changes, and I'll be back when I'm back. And, it's just, yeah. So I think just not putting too much pressure on yourself, and just reminding yourself of what your primary vocation is, and that this is all side stuff, but it's good side stuff.
Yeah, great. It's helpful. There's a question related to kind of marketing approaches, and a popular marketing approach now is to create user personas and then, to develop marketing tactics around that. And it sounds like maybe y'all it sounds like in your marketing journey was a little more organic than that. And you just kind of had a sense of who you wanted to connect with, or it coalesced around a certain point. Did you ever use some of these user personas or anything like that? Or how did you approach your target market, if you will?
I think for us, I understood that we had a really clear understanding of what we wanted our voice to be, and we really spent a lot of time mapping that out, and also communicating with each other what was working, what wasn't working, what were the surprises that we saw happening there. And then I think for me, I had to understand that when we recorded the podcast, I was on. So if I was in I was in a bad mood, oh well. If I was too tired, oh well. We have to record. I really have to bring it. Now our kind of podcast personas are pretty close to who we are as is our brand, but we did have to choose to do that, and I do have to continue to bring it. So there's kind of this understanding of it's not it's not a lie or anything, but if we're the upbeat funny podcast that is always honest, I've got to be upbeat and funny and always honest while I'm engaging as Luke from Catching Foxes, and that's okay, even if I really don't want to do that, but that's what we have decided to do. So
yeah, I don't know what that is, so
So you answered the question right there. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. My blog has always, my blog is about me, and my relationship with the Catholic Church and my family. And so it's always, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I think there's an authenticity in that too, of this is who we are, and we know there are other people out there like us, and we know our needs, and we want to communicate those needs to people that are like us. And I think y'all both do that in your niche, audiences. And so we're going to wrap up. I have a last question. This wasn't in the chat, but it's more of a kind of meta issue. And, Kierna, I just combined your name, Kendra, at St. Therese, the school, they don't even have technology. They don't even use computers in the classrooms. This is the school in Alhambra where she's a member of the parish, doesn't send her kids there, but it's a challenge, I think, in our culture today. Social media and technology there's good in it, but I think Robert Barron describes it as like a jungle where there's you might get bit by a snake, and so spiritually, how do you think about that, in terms of you want to engage people there, but also not keeping people there and opening up to broader things. And I don't know if you could just talk a little bit about I don't know if my question makes sense, but the spirituality of social media and these means for communicating with people.
Yeah, I really try to think of it as a missionary presence into social media, that St. Patrick went off into pagan Ireland, and there was a lot going on there that he wouldn't have agreed with. I leave open the possibility of, like I said before, of walking away from it if it ever felt like it was a danger to my family or to my personal faith journey. But as it is now, I know that there are a lot of moms who don't have community, who are, sitting there scrolling while nursing a baby or while waiting in the car pickup line. And I want there to be some good content on there. The danger is that, to me, I think is that it's hard to not consume the content when you're creating the content. And I definitely fall into clicking on things that make me mad and looking at comments. You should never look at the comments. And, you know, and so it does disturb my peace sometimes. And my husband is always like, you know, walk away. You're not in charge of changing everyone's mind. You know, you're not in charge of everything that's on the internet. And so I think that I am best at this when my focus is like 90% creating content and only about 10% consuming, you know, trying to hit like on people who are doing good things and trying to support, you know, artists and authors and podcasters, trying to support them and, you know, and by likes and comments and making sure that more people can see them, but to not get sucked into the quagmire.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I have real boundaries when it, you know, it comes to this stuff. I don't engage with certain people on Twitter anymore whose names, you know, I won't say who, because I just can't. Because it brings out the, like, worst in me. And I'm, you know, and it's really good to have established defined boundaries, you know. So in our house, I have a rule: no headphones in the house. So I really tried it, because I will listen to podcasts all day, every day. I love podcasts like too much. And that's more like for me. And I don't own my daughter to be like seeing her dad with like her headphones in all the time. I don't want her to be the teenager who has her headphones in all the time, which I'm sure that's probably gonna happen anyways. But so I really make sure that I have like clearly defined boundaries of like, this is actually how I'm not gonna engage with on Twitter. I don't talk to this guy. I don't care what he says. I'm just not gonna comment anymore on it. I'm not gonna have headphones on in the house. I'm not going to, like, these are like it's really, I'm not like an idea, but I try to make it, I try to have it be in actually like practiced reality. That these are the concrete steps that I do to try to really create these boundaries, because tech can consume you, and it's almost antithetical to the Christian life at times. It feels like it can be. And so you have to be real. I love like Balthasar's idea about that, how you have to really be careful and say, because it'll just destroy your life and your soul if you get too consumed into the stuff of just always scrolling, always doing stuff, always watching, always listening. It makes you numb, kills the senses. We all like do it. And so you have to be, that's why I think it's really important to have like, you know, actual like rules. No, like, I'm gonna no headphones in the house. I don't put a podcast on in my car on my commute till I'm actually on I-75. That takes about like 10 minutes or so. You know, like real, like, you know, turn it off once to exit the highway, regardless of how fun it is, because those are the boundaries that I have to not go crazy.
Oh, well, and I would just say that, you know, that to remember that what God has put on our hearts is to be creators, and not that being consumers in order to like react to things. It's not, I don't know, it hasn't been useful for me. I really love it's not 100% applicable, you know, to those of us who are creating content, but JP2's letter to artists is really amazing. I really recommend that that you take a look at that. It's not very long, but it really kind of puts into perspective that, you know, using your gifts for good.
Well, thank you all, Kendra and Luke, for your time, for sharing your insights in a very candid way with us. It's been really fruitful, and I think the participants here have a lot to take away and apply in their work and their lives. So we're just really grateful for your time and passing it forward with us. So thank you. And God bless your work and ministry.
Happy to be here. Thanks, guys.
Good luck, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. God bless you.